Hi, my name is Aaron, and this is my show, Reeducation, and today we're going to talk about das Schweine. The piggies, the little pork puffs, those motherfuckers that think that it's necessary to shoot someone because he's selling fucking cigarettes. That's right, I'm talking about the police. Which is interesting because I hate the police, and yet somehow I have this little hat sitting on my desk all the time, which is technically a policeman's hat from the former Soviet Union. Specifically, it was a Militizia hat from a parade. I'm probably pronouncing that incredibly wrong, and you can tell me how to pronounce it in the comment section below, because spelling something the way that it's supposed to be pronounced definitely works. Anyway, so the police, what are they? They are a military task force that is created by the state to uphold property laws. Now, why would the state need to uphold property laws? Well, because at one point in history, someone with a lot of power and authority came along and stole all of the property from the people who lived on it. That's why you have things like landlords and bosses, because they decided, through the force of whatever they may have had, power or violence, that they're going to take your things and make them their own. And that's how they own all of the land. They own all of the best land. They have all of the best property, all of the important goods and machines and trucks and cars and all of that stuff that we should own collectively. All of that stuff is in the hands of private capitalists, and that's because it was stolen. You see, throughout history, throughout evolutionary history, animals, monkeys, apes, squirrels, that sort of thing, didn't have any reason to create property rights, because that's something that is entirely a human construct. They simply used the area that they were living in to better their survival. When we're talking about primitive apes specifically, we're talking about them finding food, building shelter, and eventually evolving into modern-day humans. All up until that point, hunter-gatherers and all of that didn't necessitate property rights, because such an idea of one person owning the thing that you all own collectively was absurd. It was bullshit. But eventually somebody ended up gaining enough power to do so. And with that power, they decided to make everybody that lives and works on that land basically their slave. Basically, their indentured servants. Now you are forced to work on land that should rightfully be your own for someone else. And now you're giving them all of your surplus labor value, the extra money over and above your wage and what it takes to have a business. You give all of that extra money to that capitalist. Now that is a situation that I'm fairly sure no working class person thinks is right. I'm sure that if you're a working class person, you don't think that a CEO or a bank manager or a businessman 1,000 miles away should own and control your home, your work, your property, the things that you built and put your blood, sweat, and tears into every single day. Somebody that wasn't even elected by you, somebody that was appointed or fell into the fucking position because of birthright. Do you really think that those people should be the ones that are dictating to you what you get to do with the property that you live on and work on? I think not. I think that that's probably a great injustice, and everybody around me, of course, thinks that too, thus why they created the police. That's why property laws exist, because once people realize that all of the product of their labor is being stolen by somebody who does not deserve it, all of the workers who do all of the work have to give the product of their labor to somebody that simply owns the place that they are working in, that does no work at all, people get angry. People want to fight back, and people want to change that situation. So you have to have that first line of defense. That is the first line of defense for capitalism. It's an antibody, if you will. If fascism is the thing that comes along when the system is collapsing, police are the thing that capitalists hire to make sure that it doesn't get to that point. You see, the police are just basically regular citizens. They are working class people. They're just like you or I, except for one factor. They've come to the conclusion that it's better to be a pet than food. And in this situation, hey, they might not necessarily be wrong. It was the exact same situation that a lot of people that became Nazis were in. Either you join the Nazi party or you become food. They'll just kill you. Laws are made to keep people in a situation where they are always criminals. That's just a fact. That's the way that laws are structured. Even when you do something so mundane as driving to work, you have to always have that fear in the back of your head that maybe you made a wrong turn signal or you did something that was incorrect that would put you in a position where you could be locked up in a cage for making a fucking mistake. The fact is that people that commit the most crimes do so because they have no other choice. A lot of the time, crime is 100% based on your socioeconomic status. If you are too poor to afford food, then it's likely that you're going to steal food. And if you don't have a job, and the only job that you can happen to get is in a gang, an illegal job, a black market job, then what do you choose? Do you choose no job or the black market job? And now all of a sudden, you are a criminal because you had no choice, because you had to survive. That's the way the system is structured. Either you work for a capitalist or you starve and die. And if there are no capitalists to work for, then you resort to crime because you don't own and control the means of your own production. That's the thing. Once this system is abolished, you would immediately see the vast majority of crimes completely disappear because crime, the way that we look at it, specifically nonviolent crime, are mostly things that have to do with property rights, are mostly things that have to do with the capitalists being able to keep what they have stolen. Now, don't get me wrong, there's always going to be those disassociative people, those people that are unable to be fixed, or those ones in the society that we end up having no choice but to isolate from other people. Now, that's just obvious. Some people are just murderers because they like murdering. But some people, the majority of people, end up committing these crimes because they don't have any other option. That's just capitalism. That's just hierarchy. That's just the way the system is specifically built. The police are a paramilitary group that enforces laws that you had absolutely no say in. Think about that for a minute. You didn't get asked at any point in time what you think the laws should be. You were just born and the laws were there. They were already created before you even had a chance or an opportunity to say what you wanted them to be. And you think that you might have a say in those now because you get to vote on a representative, don't you? Well, it turns out that that representative decides what the fuck they want to do anyway, regardless of what your opinion is. The vast majority of policy that's passed has absolutely zero to do with what the people want and has 100% to do with what the rich capitalists, the ones that own and control the government, the media, and everything else involved, for the most part, they get what they want. And you get fuck all. You get fucked over. The type of person that it takes to be a police officer, and I'm being broad here because I know that there are a few people that get into it because of the right reasons, but the vast majority of people that get into being a police officer want to do it because they want to bust heads. They want to find a reason to hurt people, to make people suffer in some sort of way. That's why they joined in the first place. It's fun to make people hurt. It's fun to make them suffer. At least it is to them. Because most of the time, these people, on average, are sociopathic or have sociopathic tendencies. It's just the nature of the job. And the fact that the police even exist in the form that they do doesn't even make any fucking sense. Why do we have the same organization handling such petty crimes as, I don't know, spray painting a building, to something that is so important as a domestic dispute to something that is incredibly difficult to deal with, like a bank robbery? Why is it the same fucking organization dealing with all of these things? Now, I will give you this. There are different divisions like SWAT, but when you talk about firefighters, they fight fire. When you talk about paramedics, they save people from mortal injuries. When you're talking about police officers, what do? Uphold the law? Well, the law is a pretty broad fucking spectrum, isn't it? There are a lot of things that have to do with the law. Seems like you're going to need all kinds of different tool sets to deal with every one of those different incidences. And as far as I've seen, the way that we handle things right now with our police is pretty much the worst possible way that we could handle anything ever. We deal with things like nonviolent crime and drug offenses as though it's something that we should criminalize and penalize and lock somebody up for, when most of the time, it's something that can easily be solved with, well, as far as drug use is concerned, with doing fucking nothing, because it's not a crime. At least it shouldn't be in any real fucking rational sense. And when it comes to drug abuse, when it comes to overdosing, and when it comes to those sorts of things, that's a medical problem. Those are things that medical people should handle. Not people that want to come and shoot your fucking dog, which is what happens most of the time when these paramilitary fuckwads come into your house in the first place. They are an armed goon squad sent out to defend Capitol and to abuse the citizens while doing so. They don't think of themselves that way, though. They don't think of themselves as an armed goon squad. They actually, honestly, at the end of the day, when they go home, think of themselves as being the thin blue line, the protectorate of the people. They think that they're doing a good job, and that is because of their own little lens, their own little propagandized sphere, their own little echo chamber. They see all of the bad things that happen involving police officers, and they don't think that those things are necessarily their fault, or if they are their fault, they think that it's a one-off case or it's not a systemic problem, but it is. The problem is not only with the training, because we say that a lot on the left, that the police need to be retrained. The problem is the police force in general, the way that we have things structured. It's not a proper system. It doesn't work at all, and it's so easily corrupted that it's actually fucking astonishing to me that it still even exists. You can use a police force if you're a powerful person as your own personal bodyguard, because that is not a bug. That is the fucking feature. They're there to protect capitalists. I'll give you a little bit of a quick anecdote before I finish. I one time ended up kicking a bank machine. I was drunk in a bad neighborhood in the middle of the night, and I tried to put my bank card into the machine to pull out some money for rent, and the card was eaten by the machine. So in a panic, I got angry because I was drunk, and I kicked the stupid bank machine. Well, turns out that I was on camera, and I ended up having to go to court. Funny enough, when I went to court, I was sentenced to 45 hours of community service. But the interesting thing about that is the kid that was there before me, not 5 minutes before, had just held up a bus driver with a knife. He threatened this bus driver's life, and he was sentenced to 20 hours community service. He was a violent criminal, and he got basically no time, whereas I abused Capitol, and I got more time. I know that's just an anecdote, but it's an interesting insight on what we really actually care about in this capitalist system.